Well, then let's kick it off going right into that conversation because I think it's pretty important. I'm excited to have so many well versed speakers on stage with us. And this is the sort of thing that you love, the decentralized AI aspect of it. But there are always risks, regardless of what systems you try to implement when it comes to AI processing, especially. So, is there any security issues with the way that we are actually running AI systems now? Because I think that's something that we might not even think about in the next few months, really. And yet, we're all dumping our data. We're all leveraging these systems to make our lives easier. And this can go to any of you guys, especially you, Halal, when it comes to AI. What are some of those primary issues you see with centralized AI systems?
Great question. I guess one of the things, or maybe a few things, is the way data is handled when it's extracted, how it's transferred, how it is processed and used for AI. We are huge believers of data having to be encrypted, or at least the user having the control over that. And also, before it gets to the AI model, for it to not have personal information or sensitive information that could potentially be used against people. It could be the AI model itself if it knows this information.
Gotcha. And for you over there, Avi, how does AI actually play a part in your node network? Is that something that people can actually use on Koi? Can they process AI applications using Koi?
Yeah, Koii has a few different solutions for different types of AI that you might want to deploy on Koii. So Koii is ultimately just a cloud computing network with one of the largest, or at least we're growing at one of the fastest rates. We have 90 plus thousand nodes on the network, an incredible compute capacity, just a lot of compute resources from processing to networking and basically everything in between. When we talk about something like making AI on Koi, it's not so much about can it be done, it's how it can be done. It can definitely be done. There's nothing really stopping you. You just need power to make AI go, and we have the power. When it comes to solutions, we have a few different ones, and it kind of depends on the type of machine learning you're doing. When we think about AI, we tend to think ChatGPT or language model, but AI is actually way more than just language model. It's a really deep field in data science. We do stuff like time series, prediction of stock markets. We have just a little shout out. We have Trueflation. We're going to be hosting a hackathon with Trueflation September 5th. Stay tuned for that if you're a developer. But something that Trueflation does that's really cool is they have an API that does some data processing on inflation data that they capture through Koi. And so a lot of that data is actually used to train AI, and it's even fed back into the Koi network in certain ways. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Basically, you can do almost any type of AI on Koi. And we're also partnering with a company called Exhibits. And basically, if you're looking to train a massive amount or if you're looking to train AI on a massive amount of data, you're probably going to want to take advantage of one of our partners like them. But they're definitely available, and it's just about implementation. But yeah.
Wait, so let me just make sure I got this straight. Koi is that node network that allows people to basically compute anything. And on top of Koi, you have these different partners, I guess you can say, that are providing high end processing power so that even if your application is a little bit heavier on the GPU processing side, you have these different partners that have come in and said, hey, our GPUs are available for the Koi network.
Yeah, you got it. So essentially, you might come into Koi, you might take a task template, and you might say, I want to train my AI on XYZ. And then all you have to do is import the Exhibits SDK. And then, yeah, you can get access to their access of high grade GPUs for your processing. And you can spit it right all back into the Koi network for anything else that you wanted to do, like serving the model to your clients.
Very cool. So you're essentially decentralized through and through. Now, I know I just mentioned the fact that some people are running the AI in centralized systems. Do you see any concerns around the centralization of AI?
Ultimately, I like to think of myself as a business person. So I'd like to say there's advantages and pros and cons to everything. I mean, when you're talking about a government that wants to host some sort of AI or machine learning system, I think centralization actually makes a lot of sense. But when we're talking about a system that's for the people, a commercial service that makes it so that we don't have to be selling our data and our privacy just so that we can engage in a life worth living, so that you can go on Amazon or on the internet and you don't have to worry about someone spying on you. I think when we're talking about that, that's where decentralized really comes in handy. And when we're talking about AI, which is being fed such a massive amount of data, a decentralized approach makes a lot of sense because It's going to allow users to protect their own data. It's going to allow content creators to protect the work that they make. It's going to allow the community to have a lot more governance over the way we employ AI at a global scale. So there's definitely a use case for centralized AI. I mean, I worked at a water utility, and let me tell you that centralized AI was a very, very important part of the business there. But when it comes to e commerce, or when it comes to gaming, or when it comes to anything where there's a massive community on the line, that's when we want decentralized. And that's what Koi's here to do.
You mentioned that if it's for the people, it should be decentralized. I thought that's what the government was for. It was supposed to be for the people.
Sorry, yeah, I guess the government's definitely for the people. That's not what I meant. I suppose more so from like a security standpoint and stuff like that. Sometimes it's more efficient to serve your own internal infrastructure with something like that. So, like with Halifax Water, all I meant, or with the water utility, they're kind of like a government building, and we want to make sure that your data is private and all that. So, a centralized system on their side makes a lot of sense because they're just one organization and they can keep it all within. They don't have to sell your data. The government doesn't have to sell your data, and they don't actually. They keep it really secure for the most part. It's companies like Amazon and Google and Apple that are absolutely selling your data. And let's be real, most of our data is in their hands anyway. Most of what you do is on Google or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. The government, sure, it has your passport information and sure, it has some data about your water bill, but I promise you that they're not going to be doing anything crazy with that stuff at the very least. It's definitely when we're talking about what kind of data is following me around everywhere. How can someone track me across the entire internet? I think that's more what I'm talking about when I'm saying that the decentralized AI approach will protect you that way.
Now, I completely understand that. I want AWS, I want Google, and every other third party there to have the least amount of data as possible. But is there any other ways that having these decentralized AI models actually solves these issues?
Like how a decentralized AI model might solve the problem of data privacy in the context of like a larger business.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the big things is that these large companies are being hit more and more frequently by cybercriminals. And the more and more that they create these huge fortresses, really all they're doing is creating targets. And we've seen that actually a lot in Hacker News recently, where all these big data cloud companies are basically being hit left and right. And so one of the huge benefits of Koi is that we're actually very resistant to that kind of stuff. We have a decentralized sharded storage network, the IPFS. And that means that data is stored everywhere on the internet. There's no one vector, there's no one weak spot. And furthermore, it's also harder for you to get from one piece of data to the next. And so, one of the big things when we're talking about AI is that AI can sort of scrape massive, 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 massive amounts of data, just an incredible amount, and it's not going to stop. And something that we want to be mindful of is, well, if it's looking for this data, if an AI is able to go onto the internet or to go into a data store and it's able to look for this internet, I mean, eventually, or this data, sorry, eventually, what if it starts to try and break into systems to try and get this data? And what if it's so obfuscated what's happening? It's so high level, it's so hard to understand what the AI is doing that we're not even really noticing or seeing it go this deeply or dive this deeply into these problems. If you've ever looked at a true neural network, like a 70 billion parameter neural network, that's 70 billion nodes that are each connected with a weight. And that weight represents some type of information that's been embedded right about this whole network. You could imagine that that's just a language model. Now imagine a language model paired with the ability to do something else like cybersecurity. And then imagine it can break into these systems. And then imagine you're Amazon and then you're one target. You have hundreds of thousands of AI every day trying to blast your system. That sounds like a recipe for disaster to me.
Yeah, scary for sure. But hello, let me hop over to you. Do you all think that it's that wide used already? Like, do you think the general population is already saying, yeah, bring AI into everything? I'm going to order a sandwich. I might as well talk to an AI while I'm going through a drive through. Do you think that adoption is being welcomed by the general public?
I feel like a lot of people are getting used to it and it's being used for different tasks as long as it's saving them time and helping them. And not a lot of people seem too concerned. But this is the same thing with social media, I guess. Everyone knows about data being misused and all the unethical things that's going on. But at the same time, we all use it. So I feel like as long as people feel like it's improving their life. Even though they're aware of these concerns, they still use it. But I think if there are alternatives that can give a similar experience, most people would potentially switch over.
All right, that's the key here. Switch over. But can they switch over? And I'll open this up for both of you guys because honestly, we have systems that are always really well deployed when it comes to decentralized infrastructures. You're like, hey, plug and play. Here's where you go. Here's how you deploy it. Are we there though with the decentralized aspect of it? Because isn't it harder? Isn't it more difficult for people to actually implement a decentralized model as opposed to something that's ready to go on AWS or Azure or any other products out there?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately going to have to jump away in just a few minutes, so I'd like to answer that question. And I mean, it's a two-part answer, but really what we're looking at is, in concept, yeah, I think the decentralized space is a lot younger than Web 2. And we've been actually working on AI since the early 2010s. Web 2 has had a lot of time to sort of build up this infrastructure. And it's only Web3 that's realizing, oh, wow, we can do this, that we're trying to catch up. So, a company like Koii, we're really excited actually that we're working on products in house right now to make that very AWS sort of pipeline or that Azure cloud pipeline where you set up a bucket, you put the information you want in that bucket, you load the models, you just click a few buttons in a simple web interface, and then all you do is you put this stuff together and then you deploy it. Koi's going to make it that easy. And I mean, yeah, there's some difficulties on the back end. I think that's why we have some of the best engineers here at Koii working on these problems every day. But we're going to make that as easy as possible for you guys. And it's going to be really, really soon that something like that's going to be coming out. And then, yeah, it'll be just as easy as Amazon. It'll be just as easy as Microsoft.
I love it. Avi, I always appreciate when I get to talk to you. You're just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. Not only that, man, you're just super positive about it as well. I love how you make devs feel welcomed on Koi. It's a huge difference, let me tell you, going into a network where you have no support versus kind of coming into Koi and having Avi basically hold your hand and go, hey, I got you. Come here. No, this is how you do it. We'll make sure that you're successful through and through, man. Like I said, thank you so much. I know that you're short on time as far as the space goes, but I'm so happy you were able to join us for a little bit.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It was great being here.
All right, hello. Back to you, sir. How do we do this? Obviously, Tenzo is an AI company. Is it scalable? How are we making sure that we can actually get everything that people want done actually done?
That's a great question. I think it touches on the previous question as well, whether decentralized systems are ready. The honest answer is it's not. And this is something we recognized quite early on, and probably why we decided to build a system in phases where we have a hybrid system initially. Because if you look at models like Llama or GPT or Gemini, these are huge models and requires huge amounts of compute. And there's no known distributed system that can support a model like that. But in order to make a platform or system accessible for people, there needs to be similar models of this size or use cases. So this was one of the reasons why we decided to go for a hybrid system where we're able to support large models of this size and eventually centralize the system and introduce the models that can support this system as we see what systems develop.
And Al, I just want to check in. Are you back with us?
Hey, yep, just been listening in. I was giving such good answers. I
Is
didn't want to interrupt.
isn't Avi awesome, dude? I love the fact that you have Avi over there, Koi, dude. Like it's incredible. I love having him on spaces as well.
Yeah, great guy. He left out one thing, which I think is pretty critical. I think decentralized AI has a big promise of potentially lifting a lot of people up. So one of the things we're really passionate about is helping people launch their own token as an incentive mechanism. Because we've seen a lot of the major projects, and I'd be curious to hear how Tensor is doing this, but a lot of the major projects we've talked to want their token to be the AI token for the future. I think that leaves out a lot of the community appeal of building decentralized systems. So we're pretty excited to help people launch their own token. And we've worked with the node operators to make it possible for them to be able to accept a variety of different incentive mechanisms. And actually, I think as of today, the new update to the desktop node is going out. So we're going to have hopefully incentives in just about every token you can imagine coming out pretty much today and this week.
I love it. But Halal, can you answer that question? How are you guys using a token to reward users?
We see our token as a representation of data or compute within our ecosystem. And one thing we are exploring is collaborations with other ecosystems as well, for example, with Koii. So we are figuring out ways to bridge the token and organize the ratios for token distribution. And one thing we are exploring is collaborations with other ecosystems as well, for example, with Koii. So we are figuring out ways to bridge the token and organize ratios for token distribution. And the question about how we are planning on rewarding the users, the way the token work is something similar to how Bitcoin work, where miners get rewarded for contributing to creating a block. In our case, it's for node operators, like people who contribute nodes or devices to the network. Each time a node joins the network, tokens are created, and the node contributor gets rewarded partially for that. And the other way is by contributing data, by validating data and offering compute processing and we have multiple use cases like that.
Beautiful. Now, I know you're huge about this, Al, but how does Koi actually help with the transparency and accountability development when it comes to AI?
So there's a few layers to this. Keeping things open source, I think, is pretty critical, but obviously people don't want to give up their entire tactical edge. So what we tried to do so far is build a hybrid approach where you can have certain things running in the open source decentralized context, and then you can have those piped into a local model that you might be training. And so this gives people some ability to keep a tactical or proprietary advantage while also having the advantages of reducing costs in the decentralized cloud and bringing their community in to actually provide supply. So we did this with ADOT, where ADOT was able to crawl a huge amount of data off the internet using Koii nodes and is still doing so. And then the actual information is getting piped out to a core server that they have that's offering kind of the aggregation and the core LLM model. And so this created kind of a hybrid business case where the end users on the Koii node are actually providing only one component of the stack, but it reduced costs for ADOT, and I think it also provided them access to some information they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And so those kinds of models seem to work pretty well, and it keeps everything aligned and allows you to take advantage of both sides of the efficiency for now. Long term, obviously, we'd like to get everything to be running in a fully decentralized context. And we have some cool stuff coming out with Orca where we can use trusted execution environments to run closed source models as well, which allows you to keep things a little bit more secure.
I think you bring up a great point, and like people think that but just like I was talking about a second ago, it doesn't all have to be decentralized right off the bat, which is the example you just gave us with ADOT. What does that look like? Are you essentially saying it's okay for you to still come to the Koii network if you just want to use a piece of it? Because ultimately, yeah, they can set it up to where everything is decentralized, but again, they also run the risks of being like first mover advantage sometimes comes with work associated with it. Are you okay if people come over to Koi and just use a piece of it and not the entirety of the network to make their products work?
Yeah, I mean, of course. The whole idea is it's a modular stack. So if the Koii community can pitch in any way, then that's value being created for Koii node operators. So that means that they're getting tokens that have value. And on the flip side, it means that the people are trying out Koii at least. And so if we can get a few people who are building centralized AI to try out decentralized models, then it's always an improvement. And that's what keeps the ideas churning. My attitude on all of this, though, is it's just about getting something to happen. Because we've been talking about decentralized AI since I got into the space in 2015, and no one's ever quite taken it on. Same goes for decentralized hosting, decentralized storage, and a whole bunch of these other layers. A lot of it's just about getting through that initial market hurdle. And once you get a critical mass of people building on these things, then stuff starts to accelerate quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember that was when they were still calling it big data, and we didn't realize it was just AI until they kind of changed things a little bit and said, "Oh, what? Let's call it what it is." And it honestly exploded. And I don't want to say it exploded in a good or a bad way. It just exploded in the hands of the general public going, wow, I can actually use something that helps me with everyday life. We're at a point, even on Tenzo's website, I think it's 91.5% of leading businesses invest in AI on an ongoing basis. That's huge. And if we can make even just a portion of that better for the end users, more secure, more decentralized, and ensuring that there is data sovereignty going on within not only LLM models, but AI as a whole, because we sometimes forget that it goes way beyond just LLMs. I think that'd be a huge win for the decentralized compute as a whole.
Yeah, it would definitely make a big difference to have at least some of the trickle of money going into AI coming into this industry. I think the number that Eric Schmidt has been floating around is something like $300 billion that's going to get invested in AI over the next 2 years. So you can imagine if even a tiny trickle of that comes into the crypto world, then that leads to a lot of new tokens and a lot of growth.
Yeah, and a lot of new opportunity for people to actually discover how the space can actually make life a whole lot better. Which is important here. Let me just ask, what do you think are like some of the economic implications for the AI developers and users when they're transitioning from centralized platforms to decentralized platforms? And I'm sure both of you guys have a little bit to say in regards to this.
Yeah, I was saying, I think that's part of the vision for both Koii and Tenzo, I guess, making it more affordable, more accessible for developers. And one other thing is, if you go on Google Cloud or AWS, there's a ton of things you can do over there. But if you start diving deep into it, you need to be an expert in certain domains to be able to really use it, even have the certification programs and everything. But I feel like at this point, you don't really need to be a DevOps expert or something. It needs to be much easier to use. And I think Al mentioned this as well, that Koii is focused on this kind of experience. So this sort of developer experience is super important, and also being able to choose between different tiers. Right now, there's a few that's available, virtual machines or dedicated machine and things like that. But personally, I believe that there needs to be a lot more options available for developers.
Well said. And now, given the current landscape, how is Koi positioning itself against these other centralized AI initiatives? What's the unique value that it brings to the table?
So I think one of the big things, obviously, is you're not paying for computing, you're paying for people to run nodes. And when someone's running a node, they're not just providing raw compute for you, they're also providing potentially access to APIs, different data sets, and also they're providing security. And that's the big advantage, I think, more than anything. Bitcoin isn't just a database. Bitcoin is a highly secure database replicated on thousands of computers. We like to think the same way with this. The big advantage is you've got all of these independent versions of truth that are all coalescing towards consensus and making sure that you actually have something that's very firm and reliable over time. The big advantage on the data side, I mentioned a little bit with ADOT, but if you recruit Koii nodes to do compute for you, you're also recruiting them to potentially also bring in their own data sets and the access that they have. And so if you get 10,000 people from around the world to give you their laptops, you're also getting access to all the data that their laptops can access, which could be Facebook, could be Twitter, could be the broader internet. But that's giving you a lot of things that if you do that in a traditional data center environment, you have to pay for the bandwidth, you have to pay for the computing for the AI side, and then you also have to pay for this large database management system to actually go and aggregate the rest of the internet first. You might even have to pay for a proxy service. Moving things out to the edge actually makes a lot of this stuff more efficient, especially where you're concerned with reading web data and trying to synthesize it, which is how most LLMs have been operating so far.
And part of those costs as well come from APIs that you might not even have to pay for if it's a decentralized setup where people are just going out there and gathering the data as opposed to one machine trying to gather everything and going, nope, sorry, you can only have access to X number of calls on the free version of these APIs, right?
Yeah, that's been one of the big things. OpenAI and ChatGPT were trained on the original open internet, which no longer exists, actually. As soon as they started training on it, people started to get wise to the fact that locking down their rate limits on their websites was actually really valuable. So now if you wanted to get that information, you either have to go through an API provider and pay them a lot of money, or you have to recruit enough user accounts. And there's an exemption in the way the terms and conditions are structured that you can't really resell data, but if you're contributing the data towards something else, then you can do it that way. This is similar to the taxi medallions versus limo services in the early Uber days, where you couldn't really taxi regulator approval, but you could start a limo company. And so Uber for a long time was a limo company. And so we do the same thing here with the terms and conditions around data access. And that means that you can get a lot of information off the web that would otherwise be really hard to access. And then you can keep that information at the edge on these nodes at the edge of the network, but you can run all your computing right there at the edge without having to centralize all the data sets and create one of those honeypots that Avi was mentioning. Because ultimately, if we do centralize all this information, then we create these targets for attacks, and that's what leads to a lot of this very bad long tail things that can happen.
All right, I just want to make sure it's not just me, but Al, I think you're turning into a robot little by little. Did you hear that as well, Halal, or anybody else on stage?
Yeah, I thought it was
Okay.
just me.
Okay, all right. No, yeah, I just want to make sure it wasn't just me as well, because that's all right.
I
Everybody
said
knows Al's.
use the terms and conditions to hack Twitter, and Elon got upset and blocked me probably.
I thought that we were finally going to unveil you as an AI model. That's what I thought was happening. But either way, we're glad we can hear you all. Actually, it just cleared up, by the way, so we can hear you pretty good. I'm just gonna bluntly ask, Clout, is Al actually making sense, or do you disagree with him? Because this is what people came for. It's for that disagreement.
How do you mean?
No, I'm just totally curious from your point of view. Are the things that Al is covering, like the importance of decentralization of compute, not only compute but having access to new data when you build the decentralized route? Is there a big benefit there? Do you also stand on that belief that we need to move this route?
Yeah, for sure. If you look at Instagram or Facebook, it's like somebody blindly extracting every piece of data they can get, and then later trying to make sense of that. But you can get a lot more high quality and more targeted data if you engage with people and ask them to provide certain kinds of data, or like exactly what you're looking for, and also to incentivize them. This removes a lot of steps involved in cleaning up the data or making it, trying to gather better data as well. So it can definitely benefit if there's a system that can do that.
Now, something that Al was also mentioning was all these different partnerships. How important do you think that these different types of collaborations are they really important when it comes to the development of AI and decentralized ecosystems, in your opinion?
For sure. I don't think any one company or one startup can just build the biggest decentralized computing network in the world. I think it would be based on a lot of collaborations between everyone who share the same vision, coming together and finding a way to make this system work.
Well, on that note, Al, are there any partnerships or anything you have coming up that you could share with us?
Always good to talk about upcoming stuff. Unfortunately, we can't announce it until it comes out. Otherwise, it won't be a surprise.
It's a
Um,
safe space. We talked about this, Al. It's okay. Like it's like you're having an internal meeting when we're hosting spaces, right?
Oh yeah, of course. That's definitely how internal meetings. The biggest ones, probably the most exciting ones, are a lot of existing data oriented companies that are going to be buying data through the Koii network, and that's going to be turbocharging some AI projects. Project that we're launching this week to try and help out with what's going on in Brazil. So that's pretty exciting. And the Orca Compute Network, I think, is probably one of the other really cool ones. They have a template for Llama that's, I think, being deployed this week as well as an easy to use template. So we'll be able to deploy Llama, the large language model from Facebook, and they'll be able to put that out on Koii nodes and then train it using consumer data. So there's a few of those that are coming together. I can't speak to more specific examples because those haven't been announced yet. But yeah, definitely everybody should check out Orca. It's orcacompute.com, and there's some pretty exciting things there. And yeah, Bilal, would love to get you guys and Tenzo using Koii for something.
Sure, we'd love to. I've been talking to Melvis about this for a while. We're just trying to find the best opportunity to do that.
I love it. That's really exciting. Now, hello, you guys are actually not, it's AI based, but you focus on so many different things over there as well. What do you think as far as different industries go? Is there any one or a few industries that you think might be able to really benefit from AI solutions, but haven't really started to tap into this technology?
I think the music industry is one industry there. We've seen use cases where there are these models that can generate some really good music, but it's just at a very experimental phase where you're only able to use certain royalty-free music to train these models. But one thing we haven't seen yet is a truly a model that's really trained with actual licensed music and something that can, for example, help you generate a song that's coming licensed from Taylor Swift's music, for example, and you being a fan of her. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying if somebody is, then they can generate something with her consent, things like this. So that music and audio, this is one aspect that we are exploring on our end because we just happen to know this industry.
Very cool. That's awesome. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about that industry leveraging AI. That's pretty. I've used AI to create music and do that, all that sort of stuff, which is really exciting. But it totally makes sense. Like the bigger the libraries that they have access to, the more tailored, pun intended, there things could be. But Al, I want to make sure that we don't leave this call without talking about what you guys are doing as far as the bug bounty challenge, because that's 10K, right?
Up to 10K. But yeah, if anybody finds a breaking change in anything that we've published live, then they can get up to $10,000 in rewards. And there's also some Koii tokens available there as well. So the end goal here is we've been audited by Halborn and a bunch of other primary audit providers. A lot of large firms have looked through the whole code base. But if anybody in the community finds anything wrong with it before we go to mainnet, then we will be giving out a pretty big reward there too. This also applies to existing Koii tasks. But if you can find a way to hack one of the existing Koii tasks and write a fake version of it, run it on your node, or find a way to break one of the incentive mechanisms, then there's a huge prize available there as well.
I love it. It's always great when you're leveraging the community to make things better. What kind of bugs can people report though? So maybe if the nodes are not rewarding appropriately or better than they should be. You also mentioned there if there's any errors on your code that's been published live. Anything else that people can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so in terms of like user experience issues, so, if a button's not working in our website, that's not really something that would go into this competition. This is more for people who find vulnerabilities that could be exploited by a serious hacker. So it's very much a competition for red hat hackers. If there's somebody out there who finds a way to exploit Koii in some way, then we have prize money available for them if they tell us how they did it.
Love it. Kayla, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to send that to my group of developers that like to hack stuff for fun. I'm just curious if you have a post on that, and would it be like penetration testing, or what kind? How, I know we probably don't want to tell the hackers, but how would we hack Koei? Would it be penetration testing?
Yeah, so we do. We very much do want people to do penetration testing. We have a blog post up on our blog that explains how this works and has details about the prize money and how to submit your bug. And then we also have our developer webinars on Thursdays where Avi will actually be going over various ways to hack Koii and trying to help people get through it. Our goal is that Koii is an independent secure network. We're going for Bitcoin level security for AI and decentralized computing. So if somebody can hack it, then we want to know about it now. So we're here to actually teach people how to hack these types of things because that makes the whole network more secure long term.
But since we're coming up to the top of the hour here, I want to try to fly through some of the important things that I think we want to make sure that we cover, especially you got another hackathon going on right out. And I think this one is with Trueflation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, the Trueflation Hackathon is starting, I think, this week or next week. So that more information about that's also available in the developer webinars. Generally speaking, hackathons like that where they're online run for 3 or 4 weeks. So the trick is getting in early and starting something with the team because then you'll have lots of time to keep iterating on it and there's a good chance you'll actually win a big prize. That one has prizes co-sponsored by both Koii and Trueflation as well as cash prizes.
Love to hear cash prizes. Hello, let me go to you real quick before we run out of time here. What's going on with you guys other than obviously testing out the Koii network and seeing how you can implement it for your application? But any other announcements coming up, anything that you want people to know about?
We are preparing to launch our Node Runner app, which is our first public launch, which allows people to be part of the network and start testing it out.
When is that going live?
We are going through the App Store test verifications and things like that, but we will be putting out a desktop version within a week.
Beautiful. That's what I like to hear. Not to make it difficult or complicated for people here, but are we talking a little application? We're talking about a Docker container. Like, how is this going to be deployed?
It's an application which you can install on your Windows, Mac, or Linux systems, or iOS or Android, because we don't see a lot of people downloading a Docker container and trying to figure out how to run it.
All right. When you do have the Docker container, let me know because I got a bunch of VMs ready to go for that. But good to hear that you're making sure that the average consumer can actually get up and going, which is really exciting. Al, anything happening over there, Koii, that you want to make sure that people don't miss out on?
No, I think we've covered most of it. Hackathons, bug bounties, and get the node running so you can mine all these new KPL tokens. We've got dozens of projects launching their own tokens on Koii in the next couple of weeks. So if you have the node installed, this is the time to shine.
I appreciate you, Al.
My
Halal, thank you
pleasure.
so much as well. It's been a pleasure getting to talk to you all. And we do these Koii calls on a weekly basis. Make sure that you guys are following the speakers up here. We also do a lot of Koii stuff on the Genzio account, which is Genzio Media that you'll see right up here on stage as well. So make sure you guys give everybody on here a follow so you can keep up to date as far as what's going on with Koii and incredible projects like Tenzo that Halal brought to us today. So again, Halal, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And if y'all have any questions, don't ever hesitate